Thank you, Tanika.
My name is Tanika, and just a quick disclaimer to I will be talking about social media. Almost everybody uses social media, and so that can be a little bit triggering, and I apologize. My aim today is to highlight an issue that I see in the world, and it's not for me to moralize or make judgment or anything. It's just something that I want to share. So today I'm going to be discussing algorithmic persuasion and problematic social media use and a yogic response in the quest of mental sovereignty. This project, my interest in the problem of social media, which is really multifaceted, began in Dr. Fazio's class when we were asked to do a tapaha. And I realized at that moment that I was addicted to social media and spending way too much time on my phone. And so through that practice, I got really interested in the mechanisms of how you get addicted to social media. And so my Health Science 2 project was surrounding that. And then in the process of that, I also became hyper aware of how social media really influences us. Like the things that we see in the news or on TV or in movies, how does that color our world? And so social media very much has an impact on how we see it could have an impact on how we see the world. So I'm going to discuss that today. Today, I'm going to talk about algorithmic persuasion, the attention economy, data extraction, problematic social media use, the concept of mental sovereignty and yogic liberation, and some science informed yogic practices. The tools that are supposed to connect us are actually exploiting human psychology and reshaping behavior in ways that we barely notice. And that is from a former Google employee. So it's an interesting commentary. So what exactly is an algorithm? An algorithm is a formulaic aid. The computer tells all of the information to locate, aggregate, order, sort, filter, present, or prevent the information being offered. What that means is there's some math going on and they go out and they collect everything and the algorithm figures out what to present to you. Algorithmic persuasion is defined by a deliberate attempt by a persuader to influence beliefs and attitudes and behavior. Sorry, I'm really nervous. So, how that presents itself in social media, if you were to type in a search bar in Instagram, beautiful girl, this is what came up for me when I typed that in. And as you can see, there's an interesting homogenization that happens in the process of that, right? In the same manner, if you were to type in handsome man, handsome guy, this is what came up for me in the search bar. So as you can see, like already there is some subtle influence happening with the ordering that is presented to us and what is being negated, possibly intentionally. Unfortunately, algorithms are designed by the media apps and they are very elusive. They don't tell you how they're doing it. So that's another consideration. Another way that we get influenced by social media is through parasocial relationships. And that means we create these fictitious friendships online through content creators. We put trust in them. And because when we're looking at our phone, we're seeing their eyes, our brain can't tell that we're not making an actual friendship. And so sometimes that line blurs and there's trust that gets built. And that's through regular engagement, emotional impactment. It helps, reduce loneliness. And their goal is to influence you with purchasing a product or some other thing. And then I use the thing for AG1 greens because I thought that was interesting. Sometimes you see that as an ad. I'm not sponsored by AG1 Greens, by the way. Another way that social media is since you type something in or you start looking at something, the algorithm will create an echo chamber for you. So I'm not sure if everybody has noticed, but if you start looking at a bunch of yoga videos, you're going to keep getting more yoga videos, right? And so the initial belief that your initial likes will go into the algorithm. It gets reformulated. You get social reinforcement because all of the content that is created is informing you that, yes, this is exactly the way things are. You get confirmation bias. You don't really get any other opposing views. That's really kind of left out. And then you get your beliefs get entrenched, right? And so that can create unusual echo chambers. And so I used an image of the flat earth because I thought that was really interesting. I mean, that's how these things happen, right? And then another really interesting thing that I found through social media in particular is we get influenced by our front facing camera when we're taking a photo of ourselves. And so when we're looking in the camera, we see an image of ourselves, and most of the time people use filters. Um, and that can change how we see ourselves over time. When you start to look in a regular mirror, you can actually have a really aversive response to that because the thing that you were expecting to see is no longer the thing that you're familiar with, right? So that's another thing. And Snapchat dysmorphia is an actual thing that has come since this has happened, and people are seeking plastic surgery to try to look like the images that they're seeing. You know, you're going to see a lot more fillers and all of these other things. So that's another way we get influenced. So the attention economy and data extraction. How did they create the algorithm? They are, well, the people that have created the apps, they want to keep you on the apps all of the time, right? Because, you know, your time is money and human attention is really finite. And so they have done a lot of work. They put in a lot of money in making these algorithms really good at keeping us all on the app. So you take an action, you open up Instagram, Snapchat, X, whatever. The algorithm collects all the things that you're looking at. It'll predict what you might like. And then based off of like your eye scroll, your engagement, your dwell time, the content is ranked. And then you'll go get, you know, top content. And then it gets refactored in real time. So it's always working on itself and it's individualized to each individual person. So some of the data that is getting collected, as you can see in some of the really opaque terms and conditions, they track, you know, you get the information from your camera, microphone, your website activity, your movement patterns, your eye patterns, all of these things, and all of your likes, which is really creepy. But they use all of that to try to predict what you might like. And because of that, they have a lot of data centers that are getting built. Effectively, mobile phones are becoming little surveillance machines, which is creepy. I'm sorry. Problematic social media use is commonly characterized by engaging with in social media platforms more than 4 times a day. So if you are checking social media more than 4 times a day, you might meet the criteria for problematic social media use. Social media addiction is more than that. And it's not currently in the DSM 5, but it meets mostly the criteria for a behavioral addiction. Across all 5 platforms, 1/3 of teens use at least one of these sites almost constantly. Almost constantly. Nearly half of teens say that they are online almost constantly. Constant. Some of the issues, the psychological and behavior outcomes, I did not list all of them because there are a lot. There's a lot. It's been correlated to depression, anxiety, stress, ADHD symptoms, body dysmorphia, FOMO, increased bullying, higher rates of suicide, increased use of drugs and alcohol, frequent interpersonal conflicts. It really does have an effect on how we see the world. Mental sovereignty is defined as an individual's right to maintain autonomous thought and preserve individual identity by controlling, protecting, and shaping one's own mental processes without coercion, manipulation, or intrusion. So it means to be sovereign of mind. You are the boss of your own mind. Now, where yoga comes in, and I have distilled and extracted some pieces from the yoga philosophy for this purpose. But yoga is stilling the mind. Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. You're stilling the changing states of the mind. I think social media in many ways is a little vritti machine, you know? And mental sovereignty is in my mind, my perspective is highly correlated with becoming liberated, right? If you become liberated in the way of yoga and you can still your mind, you get absolute freedom, you're also sovereign of mind. So I had notes. I haven't been looking at them. So let me take a moment. Um, so yoga is the stilling of the mind. We want to calm the mind. Otherwise, we will think that our thoughts are us. We start to assimilate with that. And you will conform with it. Edwin Bryan said, when one is not aware of the distinction between consciousness and the mind, one wrongly attributes the states of the mind to the self. Ourselves are so much greater, and there's really nothing that we need to change. Everybody is perfect and beautiful. And I think that if you are able to go into samadhi and reach some of those beautiful states and see the world as it is, then you might not need social media and you won't be as affected. There are 5 kinds of changing states of mind. They're either detrimental or non-detrimental, klishta or aklishta. And there's 5 different kinds of vrittis: right knowledge, error, imagination, sleep, and memory. So the kleshas, the mental states, are detrimental to yoga because they are the seeds of karma. Some of that, and why I kind of think social media is pretty much a vritti machine, is because it cultivates avidya, ignorance. You know, you get lost in doom scrolling. It triggers asmita, your ego. You know, you have to post a photo to get a like. I really want somebody to like my photo. You have this craving validation. It's attachment raga. I got to go check my phone right when I wake up. It also can inspire aversion if you post something not so nice on there. And then there's this, sense of clinging. Karma refers to not only the initial act, but your reaction to it. So, for example, if you go on X and you see somebody wrote something that you don't necessarily agree with, and you, out of aversion, post, you're like, oh, I'm going to tell this guy, you have now created a little loop of karma. So, you're probably going to get a response to that, and it might not be pleasant or good pleasant, then that can kind of go into this little loop. The states of mind are produced by the kleshas, are eliminated by meditation. So Patanjali, wonderfully brilliant guy. He created the Yoga Sutras the Yoga Sutras, and he creates a whole, text for liberating your mind. And this is just a couple of pieces. There's multiple ways to get liberated. This is just one particular way in meditation. So, meditation is also backed by science, specifically for social media. A lower level of mindfulness was associated with more problematic social media use. And they also did another study. There's a few other studies that are starting to come out. And they said that if you abstain from using, in particular, if you abstain from using social media and you do meditation, it has found to be like the most effective way to start feeling better about yourself. Possible solutions. So, some behavior modification stuff. You can engage in the practice of tapaha and practice the austerity of not using social media. In Svadhyaya, you can study the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. You can engage in meditation. There's also some device level modifications. You can remove the social media apps. There's 1 second app. There's a bunch of things that you can do to kind of help you get out of the grasp of social media. So the 1 second app, it tells you before you try to open the app, it'll ask you to take a deep breath. And I put the QR code on here. So this talk is also not sponsored by the 1 second app, but it has been really effective. And so I do recommend and would encourage you all, if you are struggling with this, to, explore that option. Other suggestions, focus on sleep hygiene. If you're staying up late and you're scrolling, the blue light, it's going to affect your sleep. Introspection, you can journal whenever you start getting an urge why do I want to post that photo right now? Like, what is that really? Where's this coming from? You can do asana practice, and there's so many beautiful yoga teachers in here. You can do Vibhagya Pranayam. You can also do Tratika, which is also scientifically backed for a number of the issues that we see with social media addiction and problematic use. So, final thoughts. Final thoughts. I've done an extensive amount of research on social media, and I have come to the unfortunate conclusion that until they can redesign the apps to make them more ethical, it's my suggestion that people abstain from using the apps altogether. I'm not sure that the makers of the apps necessarily have our best interests at heart, right? Um, and because when I look around the world and I see people on their phones, this is what I see because this is social media. One day we will wish we had looked in the eyes of our loved ones as often as we looked into the glow of our phones. Thank you so much to all of my beautiful teachers. I'm gonna cry if I say anything more.